Wembanyama has the ball a lot and is doing a lot. Wembanyama got 16 of their 24. Wemby's back. Hierarcher is good. Took it and made it. Wow. 18-point hole they have dug out of. Oh, 2 feet for the dunk. 7 straight for the Spurs. 1 win from the Western Conference Finals.
Merci beaucoup, my friend.
It is a pleasure to have Michael Wilbon join us now to talk NBA. My brother, the Spurs take a 3-2 lead in the series against the Wolves after Victor Wembanyama just went off 27 points, 17 boards, 3 blocks. How would you describe what you're seeing from him in his first ever postseason?
Wow. Well, first let me say, Jay and Hannah, it's great to be with you guys. It's great to see you both. Wembanyama got back on the maturity track last night. He's a mature young man from everything we've seen except that elbow a couple of games ago. And so he responded in the way you'd want to see your franchise player, the face of the league player, respond, with his actions and with maturity. And he got back out there and, they were trying to get under his skin. The Timberwolves did a lot to try to get under his skin, constantly chirping in his face. He paid no attention to it. And the line he put up is sort of self-explanatory and led his team to a resounding victory that makes you think, okay, maybe this doesn't have to go 7, but it looks like San Antonio is back in control of the series, if you can be that, as this thing swings to Minneapolis.
Yeah, he also had a couple of threes. I mean, we've never, ever seen anyone with a line like that in the history of the playoffs. You mentioned the word mature. I want to play something for you because the Knicks' Jaylen Brunson spoke just a little while ago about his role in the offense, not handling the ball as much as they're putting it into Karl Anthony Towns' hands. Take a listen.
Some stars might push back. They're used to having the ball in their hands and might take it as maybe a slight, but it doesn't sound like you did. Why was that something that you were so happily to go on?
1, I'm not a star. 2, I want to win.
Why don't you think you're a star?
She said one question.
So good. I'm not a star, and I want to win. Wilby, what do you think about what he had to say there?
That's who Jaylen Brunson is. If there's a secret sauce to his career, that's what it is. His attitude and his feeling always that he's got to get better to reach stardom, which people would say, well, he's already there. He doesn't feel that way. I followed Jaylen Brunson here in our hometown of Chicago since he was in high school. And, his dad was an assistant coach for the Bulls. And his whole life was about work and getting better and adding this and adding that. And that's what he did. I mean, he was a second-round draft pick. The name of his foundation refers to that. I think it's second round, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what Jaylen Brunson, that's the chip on his shoulder. Every day that he comes to the gym, people think I'm not good enough. I'm not drafted high enough. Dallas gets rid of me. They don't think I'm good enough. The Knicks initially didn't pay him enough. That's who he is. That's the secret to his success. So it doesn't, any other answer than that or something in that vein would have surprised me, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. And how lucky are the New York Knicks to have that guy with that attitude playing in New York, where everybody wants to be a star and presumes that he's a star. And Jaylen Brunson says, no, I got a long way to go. And how lucky are the New York Knicks to have that? Yeah, and understanding that what they're doing now with Cat is to his benefit, the benefit of the team, and getting them closer to that long sought-after ring.
Yeah, he said it. I want to win.
Yeah.
So, let's stay in the East because there was news out of Philly. The Sixers moving on from Daryl Morey. There were high hopes when he got there. How do you assess his time in Philly?
All right, let me declare a bias first off. As I sit near Chris Collins, the head basketball coach at Northwestern and a dear friend. So is Daryl Morey, a Northwestern alum and a dear friend, and I have that bias working in any answer, so let me be out front about that. Look, when you have the disappointment that Philly's had, that the 76ers have had, somebody's going to be held responsible for that. And I texted Daryl this morning just to say, I know you were going to take this shot. And he had to know that. And I would not have gotten rid of Nick Nurse as the head coach who's wearing a championship ring. Daryl Morey did not draft initially Joel Embiid, who missed 2 seasons before he ever played in the league. So people can lay all of this at the feet of Daryl Morey if they want. I'm not laying all of it at the feet. But to extend him with that big a contract, Paul George and Embiid, and now you've got this situation. You've got two young, dynamic, talented, energetic guards you can go with. But are the Sixers like ahead in the conversation of the Knicks? Of course not. Of Detroit? Of course not. Of Cleveland? No. Maybe not even of Orlando, depending on sort of how they track over the next season or so. So they're still back in the pack in the East with this enormous payroll. And yes, the person who's in charge of that is going to be held responsible. And yes, that is fair. And if Daryl was sitting with us, I think he would tell you it's fair. Does it mean that firing Daryl Morey is now going to solve everything that the 76ers have going on? Is it going to clear up that contract that Embiid has when he's playing in the 50s in terms of games? No. Bob Myers, who's also a friend, and we've worked with him, familiar with this network and the architect of those championship teams at Golden State. Is Bob going to be able to sort of just whisper in somebody's ear and clear all that up? No. The 76ers have got issues, but they got two young, dynamic players to start with. Some franchises don't have that, but they're back in the pack in the East. And Daryl Morey is going to have other doors open to him. His track record and his talent says that he will.
Can we please retire the phrase "the process"? Though I just
please.
Never want to hear that again. It's just
please.
I just can't.
I didn't like it initially.
Exactly.
They tried to transfer that to Washington for the Wizards' 7-year build, and that was to me like, no, the process is retired. Hannah, you are right about that.
All right, that is Michael Wilbon.
We love you.
My guy.
Bye. Have fun in Chi-Town.
Thank you both.
5 tonight. We're tied at 2. Cavs and Pistons. ESPN is the place to be this evening. And also right now with NBA reporter Jamal Collier joining us. Jamal, the Pistons hoping to turn things around after losing 2 straight games in this series. Big part of that is Jaylen Brunson. The All-Star hasn't scored more than 15 points in any playoff game. What's the team saying about getting him back on track?
Well, Jay, they're not going to give up on Jaylen Brunson. And that was J.B. Bickerstaff's message after the game the other night. He was asked sort of why he went back to Duren in the fourth quarter while he was struggling. And he was like, look, it's about instilling confidence in guys. We know we're going to need Duren for the rest of this series. And he doesn't want to just go away from him because he's struggling. Points have been the big focus, but he wants Duren making the smart play, the right read on offense, being more ready, like, instead of that play as well. And the Pistons have had some spacing issues these past few games. You know, Cade Cunningham's turnovers have really been up, and a part of that leads to the fact a guy like Jaylen Brunson not being effective within their offense, and Duren knows he's got to be better. He took ownership, saying he's his biggest critic, and he knows that he has to be more aggressive going forward for the rest of this series.
Game 5 tonight. Jamal Collier with the latest. Thank you, my friend.
And of course, where better to begin than with the Spurs coming back home, winning the all-important Game 5 to take a 3-2 edge over the Wolves. Victor Wembanyama making up for lost time after that ejection in Game 4. He has 27 points, 17 rebounds, 5 dimes in Game 5. Third youngest player in NBA history with that kind of line. Only Luka Doncic and Magic Johnson have done that at a younger age. And then you throw in a couple of three-pointers. And Iman Shumpert, we have never in the history of the playoffs seen a person have that kind of line, that kind of performance like Wemby did last night. I'm just wondering, what impressed you the most about what you saw?
Well, what impressed me wasn't even the stat line. I think I'm starting to expect greatness out of him. I think that he's just an individual that's going to give us, monster numbers all the time. But what I was most proud of seeing a young player do was to be ejected and then still come out with that same animosity to say, I understand what you guys' game plan is, to beat me up around the rim, make sure that I'm hitting the floor as much as possible throughout a game. I know I threw an elbow to tell everybody to back up, but I am not coming out here to play soft or to sell fouls. I'm coming out here to play hard. He put pressure on them from the jump, and he stayed on them all game. I was really proud of that. As a young player in this league, for him to figure that out, that's a game plan against him, and then to use it to his advantage when he come out for a pivotal Game 5. I think it's a good thing for the Spurs organization to see that, because the knock on them was them being a young group.
Yeah, being a young group, not having the playoff experience, and to literally see him game to game grow as a player, that's pretty scary for the rest of the league. Obviously scary for Minnesota. So we're going to go back there for Game 6. Give me the one thing the Wolves have to do to keep the Spurs from closing this thing out.
Well, one thing they can't do is take the bait. Last night, they took the bait. The Spurs got into a little run. They got into a groove. Remember, they tied it at 61. There was a groove happening, and the Spurs hit threes, and the Timberwolves decided they were going to try their luck and hoist up as many threes as they could, too. There was a big swing. They went on a run, and they never recovered from that. I think that San Antonio is a team that's very guard-oriented, but they take very balanced floor shots. That when you balance the floor, you leave room for offensive rebounds. You leave room for your other guys to get back on defense to where you could stop the breakaway. Timberwolves did the opposite last night.
Yeah, now the Spurs are 4.5-point favorites on the road for Game 6. And, of course, we have the Thunder just sitting there and watching and resting up and awaiting the winner. We need you to stick around, too, Iman. Right back at you in just a sec, okay?
All right, Hannah, we new on SportsCenter, this new video today of OG Anunoby taking part in Knicks practice. New York's sweep of the Sixers was especially good for him because he gets to rest after missing games 3 and 4 with that hamstring strain. He limped off late in game 2. Anunoby, the Knicks' third leading scorer in these playoffs. NBA insider Shams Charania joining us now. Shams, what more can you tell us about Anunoby and his health?
Jay, sources tell me that OG Anunoby, there's an expectation that he will be able to play in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Barring any setbacks, there's optimism for his status for Game 1. Today, OG Anunoby participated in parts of practice. He also had an individual on-court workout. He's missed exactly 1 week with a hamstring strain. He's been evaluated on a daily basis. The Knicks are gradually bringing him back, including him in basketball activities. But the expectation and hope is that he will be a go for Game 1. Okay, we'll keep an eye on him. Also keeping an eye on this to the team that the Knicks just eliminated. The Sixers moving on from Daryl Morey. Former Warriors GM and President Bob Myers will be leading the search for a new president of basketball operations. So, Shams, what can you tell us about what the Sixers are looking for in their next executive? Jay, the Sixers are going to be hiring a new head of basketball operations, someone that will now carry it forward from a leadership perspective, but that person will partner with Bob Myers, who's the 4-time championship executive and architect of the Golden State Warriors, and now he's the president of sports for multiple teams on the portfolios of owners Josh Harris and David Blitzer. Remember, Bob Myers oversaw the hiring of Adam Peters with the Washington Commanders. He also oversaw the hiring of Sonny Mehta of the New Jersey Devils, and now the same for the Philadelphia 76ers. He is considered to be one of the most trusted people and executives and most sought after among high-level industry executives and even owners. So Bob Myers, I'm told he's in Chicago right now meeting with the current 76ers staff that's still in place, the incumbent staff, and moving forward, he's going to be a part of leading the process and the search for the next Sixers head executive. All right, Shams Charania with the latest. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
And so, Jay, Philly's next head of basketball operations, they've got this big three in place. They have Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. They have contracts with the team through 28-29. Paul George signed for 2 more years, including a player option. The Sixers have the 22nd overall pick in the NBA draft, by the way. And, of course, they have the superb VJ Edgecombe. He's young and so talented. As we're back with Iman Shumpert, I guess one of the knocks on Morey was bringing in a veteran like a Paul George, before that a James Harden. So do me a favor, put your GM hat on there in Philly. What would be your priorities this offseason? How would you proceed?
Whatever I would do, I would look at my team and say, one, I need somebody that can space the floor as a big, to understand what Joel Embiid brings and what you lose if he's not healthy. I think that's somebody that can fill in that void of saying, hey, I can handle, I can score, I can defend at the rim, but most of all, I can space the floor to give more spacing and more options for Tyrese Maxey to get downhill. The development of VJ Edgecombe can happen without him feeling like another ball-dominant player is alongside him, but more so somebody that can play off of him and benefit from playing with, guys that get downhill.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense when you look at Embiid injured all the time, George, the suspension, and Maxey. They only played together 43 game playoffs as an expansion team last year. As we welcome you back to SportsCenter. Battle to face the Knicks in the conference finals, tied at 2 games apiece. Cavs, Pistons. Good news for Detroit. Since the seeding began in 1984, the higher seeds in a best-of-7 tied at 2 games have advanced 3/4 of the time. That's a pretty high percentage as we're back with Iman Shumpert. Here's another number for you, Shump, and it's the Cavs on the road in the playoffs. It's a big offer. We saw Donovan Mitchell and James Harden play so well in Game 4. How do they translate that on the road? They're going to have to win at least one game in Detroit if they're going to take this series.
Pick a quarter, any quarter, to make a push and get out there to try and snatch you a lead. But the biggest key to this success is James Harden taking care of the ball. As long as James Harden can make sure that he plays efficiently, and I'm talking about being aggressive, but picking his spots to say, hey, I'm going to bat singles tonight. I don't always have to throw the home run pass, but I have to make sure that we're getting the best shot. I have to make sure if the game starts feeling like it's too free flow, no, let me get us in a set. Let me get us into actions, and actions that make sense. When does Donovan Mitchell need to score? When does Evan Mobley need to score? When do I need to bring Jared Allen along with me? When do I need to just take over this game, especially at the end when it's going to become him and Cade Cunningham in a slugfest if this game is close? It needs to be decision making. And if James Harden can focus on that, the Cavs are a tough team to beat.
Yeah, he's got so much experience. He's a smart guy. Just dial it in. He had 11 assists and only 2 turnovers in that game. Okay, we've discussed this matchup a lot. I want to know who you think is going to win tonight.
It's tough. The numbers say that the Detroit Pistons win at home, so I'm going to roll with the home team because that's what it's been. It's been the trend.
Ooh, okay. And then that whole road and home trend is going to continue. All right. Meanwhile, the Knicks await the winner of this series, of course. And there's something really interesting. We just got some sound in, and I want you to take a listen to this, Shump, because Jaylen Brunson was speaking to the media, and he was asked about the team putting the ball into Cat's hands more. This is new on SportsCenter.
Some stars might push back. They're used to having the ball in their hands and might take it as maybe a slight, but doesn't sound like you did. Why was that something that you were so happily to go on?
1, I'm not a star. 2, I want to win.
Why don't you think you're a star?
She said one question.
Handled so well. 1, I'm not a star. 2, I want to win. That is like the most mature answer. How does that strike you?
Yeah, I think maturity is definitely involved, but there's just a lot of gravity to that. I love that he said that because he's letting you know, like, there's not a confidence issue with him. He's not saying I'm not a star. He's saying if stars complain, then I'm not a star. If you're gonna say that stars complain and stars go out here and make excuses, then I'm not a star. I'm a player that wants to win, and I feel that not only did he send a message to the rest of the league, I think that's a beautiful message to have go around your locker room to say, yes, I am selfless rather than selfish.
Yeah, I'm cool with this. I don't need the ball all the time in my hands. You have won a championship. Give me a comp. Okay, because that's what it takes on a championship team. So give me something that this reminds you of, a person, a situation, something else.
I mean, we had so many guys that had to take turns with being selfless on our team. Kyrie at times had to take a back seat. Kevin Love had to take a back seat a lot of the time, but there was games that JR was going off and you had to watch other stars manipulate their role on the team. But when you're going for a championship, it doesn't matter. Mikal Bridges having a struggle early on in these playoffs will all be forgotten if they go to the championship and hoist up a trophy. And understanding that is what can make you a champion sometimes. Sometimes it may not be in your story to hit the last shot at the last second to get that ring. But do you not want the ring?
Right, because that ring is definitely in your story.